Okay, so 3 names coming out of the select committee picked by Mayor Adrian Perkins to come up with 3 finalists, 3 names from the, let me see, 8 people on the committee, looking at 7 folks qualified by their civil service scores, test scores, to be police chief of Shreveport.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 finalists, 3 names on the list. Sergeant Michael Carter, he's the police union boss. Lieutenant Tedros Smith, and Assistant Chief Wayne Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Conspicuous in absence. If you're hearing this for the first time, you're thinking, well, wait a second. What about Chief Ben Raymond? He's the substitute chief. He took over when Alan Crump sort of stepped down.
He was not one of the 3
He
recommended by the panel.
The highest.
Mm-hmm.
And there is there anybody that doesn't seem to be stunned, shocked, overwhelmed with disbelief at those names that are going to the mayor? You spoke at some length with a number of people on that committee this weekend. And to some degree, you promised anonymity, and to some degree, you promised off the record. But what can you tell us?
In every case, it was anonymity.
What can you tell us about what they told you? Were they as taken aback? Were they as stunned? Were they as put off, as it were, as everybody in social media seemed to be?
Some of them were stunned.
Some. Did you talk to any who said, yeah, that's what I expected. I didn't think Ben was going to make the list.
One of them told me that it went as expected. No huge surprise. No big surprise. I think the process worked the way it was supposed to work.
If nobody had a predisposition, an inkling as to how they were going to vote or how it was going to go, how could anything happen as expected? Wouldn't anything be a surprise? Was there a favorite going in? Was that Chief Raymond?
You would have thought that Chief Raymond would have had an inside track, and I asked them all, did Chief Raymond blow it? Did he screw up in his interview? Was there something that's glared out at him that, that made people not vote for him?
To quote Erin McCarty, what glared so loudly?
Yeah. And they all told me, no, his interview was fine. It was a little bit shorter than the others, perhaps. But some of them, they said quite bluntly, were long-winded and took a while. And nobody said anything about Ben doing bad or having any issues that raised the red flag.
Coming on the heels of a chief, i.e. Crump, selected by former Mayor Ollie Tyler, who had, on the civil service test, the lowest score of the applicants, yet getting the job.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the 3 finalists, Smith and Smith, had the 2 lowest scores on the civil service test. Did anybody say anything about that?
The scores really didn't matter too much to them. They met the minimum scores. They were not too concerned about that. A lot of this, and we're stepping on eggshells when we talk about it. A lot of people say this is race. It's a racial issue. That there is a segment in the community that wants an African American chief.
Did any of the people you talked to who would be in the know, who may have been on that panel themselves, did any of them make that allusion?
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Okay, we've got 3 cuts from Mayor Perkins going back to August 1st. Phone interview we did with His Honor the Mayor. And the first of them, the question was, I think it was you who brought it up, so tell us about what you expect from this committee. What are your anticipations?
And could you deviate?
These are experts, and we talk all the time about this even before it started. So
you're committed
I'm positive I'll get enough information.
You're committed to picking one of the 3 they send to you.
There would have to be a very crazy circumstance. I'll put it that way. So yeah, the likelihood is very high that I'm going to select somebody that's the committee. So I'm talking about in the 90 percentile. It would have to be a very odd thing.
Sorry, jumped the gun. So the question is, a crazy scenario. Is that crazy scenario Ben Raymond not being on that list? Next question for the mayor, and it had to do with the scores. How much weight? In fact, you start off the soundbite about those scores. How much weight you going to put on those?
Does the score on the civil service exam matter to you much? And what's your time frame?
It does matter to me. I think it's very much. I think it's a indicator of the competence of the candidate. So yeah, it definitely matters to me, but it's not the only matter. Just like college admissions, I've told the committee I want this to be a holistic process. So when they conduct interviews, I want them to weigh that as they weigh the police chief.
And your last question, our last question of the mayor, going back to a couple of months ago, about a month or so ago actually, is marching orders, sort of a mission statement, if you will, for whomever ends up being the chief.
Number one priority is a police chief that understands community-oriented policing, can understand the policies that need to be implemented to make sure that we're encouraging and incentivizing our officers to get to know the communities that they're serving. That's number one. Number two is I need an innovative leader, right? We talk about budget and money and a bunch of other things. Well, this leader is working with constrained resources and needs to solve some really big problems. They need to solve a perception problem where they're fighting against social media and a bunch of other things. They need to be able to include technology. So I'm looking for an innovative leader as well that's going to be thinking outside the box to make our police departments better.
So tell us about your poll online. Tell us about the latest results. Tell us what you know, what you think, what you've seen from people who have been to the site, who have the app.
Yeah, the question is, should Ben Raymond be included on the list of finalists? Should the mayor step in and change the list?
Should the mayor break his own rules?
Yes. Should he decide to do just that? Whether you can say yes or no or undecided. And right now, 62% say yes. The mayor should add Ben Raymond's name to the list. 38% say no. And there's nobody undecided.
Any statement from City Hall to this point pertaining to...
Funny you should mention
the
that.
Surprise... the surprise that Ben Raymond being off the list.
I had a short conversation with the mayor about this Saturday because we were at that football game, and he was shocked that it leaked out. I got
news for you. Everybody was shocked.
He essentially said John Settle knew the names before I did. And he was very, very taken aback by that. He was curious as to who leaked it. We discussed that a little bit. And then he said, and I said, look, I've got you talking about how you're not going to deviate from the list. Do you still feel that way? You really need to come on the air with us Monday and clarify if you're not going to deviate from the list or if you are. And he said, I'll come on the air with y'all early Monday. Well, he since has apparently changed his mind after sleeping on it and said his folks have told me that he's got a lot to do with regard to this, and he doesn't want to comment publicly yet.
What's the time frame supposed to be? Is it by like the end of this week? Do you think we should get a finalist from the mayor to go to the city council?
Well, the city council meeting is Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, and to get it on the agenda, Art Thompson's pretty picky about how he wants his things presented. He's the clerk of the council, and he needs everything to him by Thursday to get it on the agenda for Tuesday. So, maybe he could wiggle that around a little bit for the mayor. I don't know.
So the point I'm making is if the mayor says, I want to discuss the police chief on Monday at the work session or Tuesday, he doesn't have to give him a name. All he has to say is police chief on the agenda, and it's on.
No. He would have to have a name because they would be up for confirmation.